Very exciting to see all of you here tonight. Thank you for joining us. We are excited to have you here. Joining us tonight for Sharsheret in the Kitchen, Feasting with Focus, Passover Nutrition Tips and Tricks with Tamar Rothenberg. I'm Jessica Jablon, California Regional Director at Sharsheret. For those of you who don't know about Sharsheret, we help women and families facing breast and ovarian cancer, as well as those who are at elevated genetic risk, through free, confidential, and personalized support and resources. In addition to our virtual services that can be found on our website or by emailing us, you can also access prior webinars on a range of cancer-related topics, as well as access our calendar of upcoming virtual programs through our website. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on Sharsheret's website along with a transcript. Participants' faces and names will not be in the recording as long as you remain muted. If you would like to remain private, you can turn off your video and rename yourself, or you can call into the webinar. Instructions are in the chat now for both options. You may have noticed that all participants were muted upon entry. Please keep yourself on mute throughout the call. If you have questions for Tamar, put them in the chat box either publicly, or you can click on Share It in the chat box to submit a private question, and I will ask them through the program. We also received some questions in advance, and we will do our best to get as many answered as we can. And we will send out a follow-up email from today's webinar with the recording in the next, hopefully before Passover, but maybe right after. As we move into the webinar itself, I also want to remind you, Sharsheret is a national not-for-profit cancer support and education organization and does not provide any medical advice or perform any medical procedures. The information provided by Sharsheret is not a substitute for medical advice or treatment for specific medical conditions. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat a health problem. If you have any questions that are specific to your medical care, Tamar may not be able to advise regarding specifics and would always advise that you speak with your own medical provider. Always seek the advice of your physician or qualified health provider with any questions you have regarding medical conditions. Now, we are very excited to bring you another Sharsheret in the Kitchen webinar. This webinar is a little bit different from our typical Sharsheret in the Kitchen programs because it isn't a live cooking demonstration, but Tamar will be showing us some recipe videos throughout the program. And the recipes are posted in the chat, or you should have received them in a prior email. Prior Sharsheret in the Kitchen webinars can be accessed on our website at the link in the chat. We also want to thank our generous sponsors, Daiichi Sankyo, Merck, and the Cooperative Agreement DP19-1906 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, whose support allows us to create and provide important educational programming like today's webinar. Now, I want to take a minute to share a little bit about our Sharsheret in the Kitchen nutrition coaching program, which is about to start its 9th cohort this spring. The goal of both this webinar series and our nutrition coaching program is to provide people impacted by breast and ovarian cancer with more tools to make healthy diet choices. If you haven't yet participated in our nutrition coaching program this spring, you can apply for one of these two exciting opportunities. First, you can receive 3 one-on-one nutrition coaching sessions with today's guest, Tamar Rothenberg, of Nutrition Nom Nom, and author of Cancer Diet for the Newly Diagnosed, an integrative guide and cookbook for treatment and recovery, where participants will have 3 one-on-one personalized nutrition coaching sessions over Zoom, tailored to their nutrition needs and their goals. The other option is with cancer nutrition expert Rachel Beller, founder of the Beller Nutritional Institute, and her 8-week transformation masterclass. I do want to mention that space is limited and applications will go live in May, so stay tuned and check your inbox. Additionally, please note that the Sharsheret Nutrition Coaching is a one-time only program. So if you've already taken part in it, unfortunately, you're not eligible to retake it. Now, I want to introduce you to Kathy, who is going to share her personal story with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Kathy Rose, and I'm happy to be a part of this presentation tonight. I was diagnosed with invasive ductal breast cancer in August of 21. I had a single mastectomy and a DIEP flap, followed by chemotherapy. I lost all my hair, and now it's back. and I have been on anastrozole since February of 2022. I'm happy to say that I'm back to cycling and hiking. I'm healthy and I'm here, and I'm eternally grateful to Sharsheret. Really, truly grateful. I love them. I will go to the ends of the earth for them. Sharsheret knew what I needed before I did in every way. They sent me makeup. We talked about hair. They held my hand over the phone when I was crying, which I could do now. But really, they were just there for me in a million ways. And one of the ways that they were there was to hook me up with Tamar Rothenberg, who was awesome. They offered me the opportunity to meet with her, which I did over Zoom, and happily took advantage of that. Tamar, I just can't say enough good things about Tamar and her knowledge and her base. I was plant-based when I started. Tamar just helped me sort of fine-tune the things that I needed to do, and I still call her. I talked to her, I think probably 2 years ago, and I reached out to her, I'm going to say maybe a month or two ago, and Tamar got right back to me. She's just awesome. So she helped me with the science and questions, and she also held my hand. She was just awesome. So I'm delighted again to be a part of this. I want to thank them, and with all my heart. And I'm going to cry, so I'm going to stop talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you for sharing your story with us today, and for being such a great friend to Sharsheret. You're always such a warm presence, and have such beautiful things to say. So thank you for sharing with us today. So on to the next part of our webinar. Passover and healthy eating might not feel synonymous. And that's why we are so excited to bring Tamar to share some dietary tips and tricks with all of you today. I'm excited to introduce her. Tamar Rothenberg is a registered dietitian nutritionist who specializes in nutrition for breast and ovarian cancer thrivers in her private practice in Los Angeles. She is also, as we've said, a nutrition coach in our Sharsheret in the Kitchen nutrition coaching program. She is the author of the book, Cancer Diet for the Newly Diagnosed, an integrative guide and cookbook for treatment and recovery. And she has a certificate of training in vegetarian nutrition and herbal formulations in cancer care. She co-facilitated the study Coping with Cancer in the Kitchen at Cancer Support Community and published in Nutrients, an international peer-reviewed journal of human nutrition. Also, please stay tuned to the end of the webinar, as we are excited to give away Tamar's book to one lucky person who fills out today's evaluation. Tamar, welcome to Sharsheret in the Kitchen, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sharsheret, for this great idea for a webinar. Thank you, Kathy, for making me cry. I'm going to start right away because I know you're all eager to go right back into the kitchen. Okay, let me share my slides. Okay, so feasting with focus, Passover nutrition tips and tricks. So we know Passover is the holiday of freedom, but sometimes it seems it's a little more spiritual than physical freedom for us preparing meals, correct? So let's take a look at some ways we can find to preserve both our health and Passover. First, I'll introduce some tips and tricks, easy ones that you could just take on. And then I'll share the recipes, which many of you have gotten the pack already. You can follow along with videos that I created, and I can stop and start those videos so you can ask questions. And then I have one technique video, and of course there'll be time for Q&A at the end. If you do have a question, you didn't understand something I said, please include it in the chat. So why is it so difficult? Does it seem so difficult to eat healthier on Passover? Well, of course, there are many meals to plan, so it can seem very overwhelming. We're having late meals, so we're off schedule. Maybe our sleep is disrupted. We're not feeling so great. We can feel restricted because there's fewer food choices. And for people with eating disorders or disordered eating, please ask your rabbinic authority. You should not feel restricted. And some of us may be more sedentary. We're having more meals, we're sitting more. So try to focus more on the holiday part rather than the food part, of course. The social aspect of eating together, the family getting together. These are all wonderful elements of the holiday. But all this can make it seem like meal prep is a little more complicated. But we can take advantage of some wonderful spring vegetables that are coming out, and I have some recipes for that. So let's talk about how tips for food decisions. Number one, I know people always say to me they're hungrier on Passover. Part of that is obviously your diet changed, and even your microbes in your gut have changed because you're changing your diet. But many of us are not eating balanced meals because of the difference in food. So make sure every meal you're having what we call 3 macronutrients. Those are your protein, your fat, and carbs. And it's easy once you know how to do that to mix it up so that you don't walk around feeling hungry Passover. In terms of matzah, I'm always asked, well, how is that equivalent to bread? So I'm going to give you some of these numbers and you can figure out what you want to do for yourself. Even if you're diagnosed with diabetes, we can work with that. No one says never have matzah, right? So you want to limit it to 1/4 of your plate as your starch or carb choice. And I mean a single layer, not a pile of matzah. And let me tell you why. So because I operate more by the plate method, meaning how your plate is balanced rather than counting calories or carbs, but I will give you these numbers so you have them. So the equivalent of 1 white machine matzah is 25 grams of carbs, right? So that's like a 1.5 slices of bread. So think of it that way. It doesn't have any fiber, the white matzah, and trivial amount of protein. The whole wheat is a better balance because it has 20 grams of carbs, so a little more, a little less, I mean, in terms of bread. And it's 4 grams of fiber, which will keep you more satiated, and just a tiny bit more protein. Now, if you're having the handmade, what we also call the shmura matzah, that would depend on thickness. But if we're going by weight, so 30 grams of the handmade, which is equivalent to 1 machine made, is 21 grams of carbs. So equivalent to really a whole wheat. And usually the handmade is whole wheat. So figure about 30 grams is about 1.5 slices of bread. So does that make sense if it's not too overwhelming, all those numbers? But again, I suggest just keeping it to 1/4 of your plate. Number 2, keep hydrated. Your schedule's off, all things, a lot of family maybe is there, and you're not remembering to drink. So that's important. And then try to pay attention to your hunger and fullness signals. We're eating lots of meals, but maybe you could take a pause and say, am I almost full? And then decide, okay, I'm okay, I can stop eating. And then don't skip meals either. And then aim for the higher fiber foods, which all my recipes have higher fiber in it, because that'll also help you feel more satisfied and keep a balanced meal. So continuing on these tips for food decisions, again, with the plate method, you want to keep 3/4 of it plant foods every meal. So that could mean your matzah is actually a plant food, so that's okay. But that could mean a salad or a vegetable, or what it means is that 1/4 of your plate is left for the protein. And how much protein you need is very individual. That's something I calculate. But think of that as how you structure your plate. And then the second tip is, if you can, use almond flour instead of matzah flour or matzah products for desserts, for breading. You can use it for almost anything, and it's delicious. It can be used in either sweet foods or savory foods. It has a little oil, so you can reduce the oil in the recipes. Very low carb, low glycemic, and just very high fiber, more fiber than whole wheat. So a really good choice. And then take some exercise snacks instead of food snacks. Take an exercise snack, go out with your family, take a walk, whatever you can do to get your blood sugar down, and you're feeling a lot better after these walks. Finally, manage expectations. It is a holiday. You're probably going to eat more. Just move on, and go with it, and feel good about the good things that we have this holiday to get together with family. So as far as food decisions, you want to start with stocking your environment with healthier choices. That's going to be the beginning of making these healthier choices. So you want to ask yourself a couple of questions. Number one, what are your greatest barriers to creating this health promoting food environment? For example, do you have the right tools? I know it's Passover. Do you have the time? Do you have the cooking skills? These are all important things that may be barriers, and figure out what your barriers are so you can work with them. And then on the other hand, what are your greatest assets to creating a health promoting food environment? Do you have the time? Do you have the budget? Do you have the cooking skills? Do you have help? So these are ways that you can achieve those goals. And finally, the next time you bring groceries home, just take a look at them before you put them away. Is this the environment you want in your kitchen? What do you see? Does this reflect your healthier choices? And obviously, there is room for what I call fun foods and dessert. So that doesn't mean something's wrong with your choices, but you want to see overall your environment reflects your goals. Okay.
Tamar, there were a couple that came in about almond flour.
Yes.
Would now be a good time to ask you?
Yeah, if it's a quick question, sure.
Sure. Somebody asked, how does almond flour perform differently from regular flour?
So it has more moisture, so you'd have to, depending on the recipe, you'd have to increase the almond flour. Make sure you use almond flour, not almond meal. It's something very different. And usually it's about 1.5 cups of almond flour to a cup of flour. That would be the ratio. And then you might reduce the oil as well. So something to consider. So as far as your environment, if you want to take a picture of this, this would be, for example, some of your pantry essentials for Passover. Obviously, you're going to have spices and herbs. Your whole grains don't have much choice, but it's either whole wheat, matzah, and quinoa. We're blessed with new choices every year. So now we have almond milk. We have vinegars that make dressings delicious and marinades, even apple cider vinegar. The flours we have now are almond and cassava. So those are nice choices. We have almond butter. That's a good protein. For vegetarians, we have now chia seeds and nuts and seeds to, include more protein. And then we have new options in the canned market, right? We have hearts of palm, which is tastes a little like jicama, so that's a nice addition. As far as oils, I would stick to top number one would be olive oil. You can even use it for sauteing up to like 400 degrees. Coconut, I would really leave for dessert because of the high fat content. And then avocado is really ideal. I haven't seen it. I don't know if anybody's seen it yet for Passover, but that's great for high heat cooking. And then grapeseed would be, I would say, kind of your second choice after olive oil, and then using oil spray, which now is also pretty new in the market. I see it a lot for Passover. And then for other kitchen essentials, obviously we have all our greens, loose greens, bagged greens. We have all the vegetables except for obviously peas and string beans, but these are all great things to add to your menu. Don't forget about condiments to pump up the flavor. So I saw Korean chili now we have for Passover. That's really a nice addition to spice up. We have pickles, olives, hot sauce. Mayonnaise, try to stick to the olive oil. That sells out pretty quickly though. Dairy and eggs. I know a lot of us rely a lot on eggs. Now, there are recipes, if you look up vegan recipes, you can make a lot of dishes without eggs. For example, I make a potato kugel with no eggs, perfectly delicious. You wouldn't notice, that kind of thing. All the vegetables, fruits, stock up on the spices, the herbs that are frozen. They come from Israel. They're great for cooking. Your animal proteins, try to focus more on fish. You'll feel a lot better than meat every meal. Chicken and turkey, perfectly good. And then prepared foods, if it's boxed, it's not usually part of your healthy environment. But fruit pops and sorbet are great as prepared foods or for dessert. And then your dry storage, of course, potatoes. I know we also focus a lot on potatoes. They're a perfectly healthy food. Sweet potatoes have even more fiber than regular potatoes. They have more vitamin A, but potatoes have more potassium. So each one has their health benefits. So don't worry about, you would balance your plate if you're having the potatoes with protein and other things, right? So that's part of your healthy food environment. And now let's get cooking a little. You have the recipes, you can take them out if you'd like, but I will share them as well. And what I'm going to do is I'll narrate the videos as we go along. I can stop and start if you miss something or you have questions. These are the recipes I'll go over. Marinated strawberries and yogurt. I chose very simple recipes so you can get in and out of the kitchen pretty quickly. Deconstructed salmon sushi bowl. Yes, you can have your sushi on Passover. Baked cod with fennel and tomato sauce. Sheet pan lemon dill chicken and dressing. And then I have a technique video to make your life a little easier for butternut squash. So let's get started here. This is our marinated strawberries and yogurt. Very simple. It's got protein, easy to do. You can do this if you want overnight, so you have it ready in the morning for breakfast. It's a great snack as well. So let's yes.
Asked about an alternative to strawberries because they're allergic.
Oh, yes, of course. So I don't know if it's all berries, but you can use any fruit here that would work, or any other type of berry, and that would be perfectly fine. So these are, I'll just, let me just show you these are your ingredients, very few. Balsamic vinegar you can find now in every kosher store for Passover. Yogurt of choice, honey or maple syrup or date syrup if you want, optional, and lemon. Take a look at the knife techniques here. The nice thing about my videos, you can really check out some knife skills. Here's how to cut them remove the hull without cutting the whole strawberry. Now you're marinating, you're just taking your balsamic vinegar and yogurt, and you can marinate for a few minutes or an hour if you'd like, and you build it here. You top it with some lemon zest. It's really good. And if you want to pump up the fiber here, I might add some chia or some more berries. You can have blueberries and it's really a nice morning breakfast instead of more starchy kinds of breakfasts. Okay. So here's the recipe. This takes a total time of 30 minutes, and that's only because you're marinating it. You're using 1 cup of strawberry. This recipe serves 2, so you can double it easy. Just a teaspoon of honey and the 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, which adds so much flavor. And the lemon zest kind of brightens it up, right? So you saw how easy it was. Let me know in the chat if you think you'll make it or how you would customize it even. So my next recipe is the deconstructed sushi bowl for Passover. For you lucky Sephardim, you can keep the rice. For us Ashkenazim, our poor Ashkenazim, we can use quinoa here. The nice thing about, we have a new product that I've seen. It's a seaweed snack. So you can use that here. You just sprinkle it on top of your sushi bowl, and it really does give you that sushi taste. So I don't have a video, but I'm just going to show you how easy it is to make it. It's really just assembling a bowl. This is a great lunch, by the way, or a light dinner. So this takes 20 minutes. It serves 4. You would take your cooked quinoa and you'll toss it with 2 tablespoons of your dressing of choice. You can use like a cilantro lime dressing might work here. Some salmon cooked, if you like, 2 carrots. The radishes are for crunch and color, an avocado, a cucumber, and 2 scallions. You're basically just cubing the salmon and assembling everything on top of the quinoa, and then placing more dressing if you'd like to serve it with that. Really easy. And then you're going to sprinkle your seaweed snacks, and it's just a nice light addition to all the heavy meals that we're having on Passover. So okay.
You've got a lot of people in the chat saying that they would make the yogurt, or they would make
Oh, good.
the sushi bowl.
Excellent.
Somebody had asked about the honey in the strawberry dish, if you could use lavender honey.
Well, that sounds even better. I may change my recipe. Thank you. That sounds delicious, and sounds like it would smell really good too. Yeah, you can use any honey. You can use maple syrup. You can use, I use a lot of date syrup, so, and not a lot, but I mean, instead of honey sometimes. So all those are great options. It's basically yours to customize. Okay, so moving on. This is a main dish with fish. It's called a baked cod with fennel and tomato sauce. And here I'm making use of a wonderful spring vegetable, fennel. Now, I think you can substitute any fish or even chicken for this, because you're making a delicious sauce and then cooking it. The cooking time would be a little longer for chicken, but you can try this with salmon as well. Cod is kind of a nice change up sometimes. If you can, find it in the kosher stores for Passover. So let's see what we do here. Let me go back and show you the ingredients. Sorry, it goes really fast. Okay, so these are all ingredients that are very accessible. You can find for Passover. Any tomato sauce you like, fennel, spinach, olives, about 2 1/4 pounds of cod, red pepper, and an onion, right? So easy. So first you're going to build your sauce. You're going to just roast your fennel. Sorry, didn't mean it to go so fast. You're going to roast your onion and fennel in the oven for 10-15 minutes in a 350 oven. Now you season your cod. And here you're making your sauce. When you take out the fennel and onion, just pour the tomato sauce, spinach, and olives, and then you're going to combine well. This sauce can be used for other things as well. It's really good, even vegetables. And then you're going to nestle your cod here. And all you need is cook it for 15 minutes. And really, it's a nice main dish. Add in a salad or a vegetable. You can serve this again on quinoa if you're sick of quinoa, which everyone is by the end of Passover. You could try cauliflower rice or even broccoli rice, a nice addition instead of the quinoa, right? How does that sound? This whole thing serves 6. In 30 minutes, you have a whole dinner. So you can make a salad or do something else while this is cooking. And dinner is ready in a half an hour, right? You can cut back on the olive oil if you like, if you think it's too much. I use here in the recipe a 1/4 cup because you want to really get the onions softer, but sometimes tomato sauce has a lot of oil in it, so you can cut back there, okay? How does that sound? Do you think you might switch it up with another type of fish or use the cod?
I'm excited about this, although there are a couple of questions about substitutions.
Yes.
For the fennel, or for the tomato sauce. And then somebody asked if you could substitute or add mushrooms if you don't like olives.
Well, you want the what we call umami taste, which actually mushrooms have. You would definitely have less salt if you take out the olives, so that's a benefit. Tomatoes are also umami, so I think, the olives are just a layer of flavor, so you can take it out, and I think it would be fine. Instead of fennel, you could try celery. You might, the fennel has kind of a licorice taste, so it's hard to duplicate, but celery might be okay. It wouldn't be as soft as the fennel. Without the tomato sauce, you need some kind of sauce. So you'd have to figure out what other sauce you could use instead.
Someone asked about leeks, using leeks instead.
Oh, leeks would be nice. Yeah, well, if you're using onion, I might substitute instead of the onion, just do the leeks because it might be a little too much, leeks and onion together. But it's certainly worth customizing the way you like it. Okay, thank you. All right, so our next main dish is, again, very easy, accessible ingredients. We're using another spring vegetable. Asparagus is beautiful this time of year. We have a dressing, and then you're going to be using skinless, boneless chicken thighs, so you don't have to deal with the skin and the oil. Yeah, and what I suggest is you buy a baking sheet, either a aluminum one or a foil pan, and it's going to be your friend for Passover because you can make a 1-dish meal all together on a baking sheet in your oven. Really quickly pull together dinner. And the trick is also to use parchment paper to line the baking sheet, so no cleanup, okay? Some people put a little water underneath the baking sheet so it sticks a little better. You can try that. But that I really highly suggest you do that to make your life easier in the kitchen. Now with this recipe, I think you can also try fish. You would cook a little less. I might add sweet potatoes just for an additional vegetable or starch for this meal. Also, once you marinate the chicken, you can also freeze it for cooking later. Okay, so these are all kind of shortcuts for you. So let's look at this recipe. Lemon dill chicken with asparagus. I gave you both the lemon dill dressing, easy olive oil. Take a look at The way we cut the garlic and the dill here, you smash the garlic with the flat side of your knife and makes it much easier to peel. And then you can either mince it or press the garlic. You can use maple syrup a little less if you'd like. Take your lemon, you're going to zest it first. Okay, and then you're going to bream it to get all the juice out. Another trick with reaming lemon is you can use tongs to squeeze the lemon instead of your hand sometimes. All right, so now we're cutting the dill. Take a look at how we're holding the knife here, so it goes pretty fast. You can whisk it or just use a fork even. And now make sure you save some aside that you didn't use for chicken for later on for dressing the dish. You're basically just covering this and you're going to marinate it. It marinates pretty quickly. Either a few minutes or up to 4 hours. Make sure you put it on the bottom of the fridge so it doesn't leak on anything. Here's your parchment lined paper. Really easy. Now you're just going to put your chicken in a single layer. Easy cleanup, right? And all you're doing, you can use a thermometer, roast it about 20 minutes. So, and then once you prepare your asparagus here, you're putting your asparagus in the last 8 minutes of cooking of the chicken, you're putting in the asparagus. So everything's ready at once. Here again, I would use a baking sheet because you're putting the asparagus in a single layer. So you probably know the trick of cutting off the woody ends or just snapping it. Again, you're just putting these in the last 10 minutes of cooking. Everything's ready at the same time. Put a little, or you can use your olive oil spray here and season with salt and pepper. And that's it. This makes a beautiful plate as well because of the bright green. If you don't cook asparagus too long, it stays bright green. That's what you want. You can add, instead of more dressing, you can add just some lemon juice or lemon zest. The chicken's ready here. It plates beautifully. Keep the dressing for a side salad or any other vegetable. I always suggest lemon to brighten things up. It adds more moisture to the chicken as well. And you can serve the dressing separately if you like. And this is great. So let me know if you're going to be making this as a main dish as well. Just another option.
That looked delicious.
Oh, good.
There were some questions that came in about it, whether or not, boneless chicken breast would work, and whether or not the dark meat was better than white meat.
Yeah, great question. You can use the chicken breast. You may have to adjust cooking times. They may be similar. But the dark chicken has more moisture, so people tend to like that. But since you're using dressing, the chicken breast might work really well too. Okay.
There was another question about the chicken. If the maple syrup in the, I guess in the dressing was in lieu of red wine vinegar.
That's because of the balance of flavors. It adds a little sweetness. I haven't tried it with balsamic vinegar. I'm sure it might work just as well. I think that's a good substitution.
Somebody asked if cilantro lime dressing would also work.
Yes, yes. In fact, you can keep the dressing you made from before for the sushi bowl, and anything that's citrusy would be good with this because you are using lemon.
Great.
Sorry.
Well, and then there was one more question about the parchment paper instead of foil. Do you prefer parchment paper instead of foil on the pan?
Well, I think parchment paper is preferred only because it doesn't impart any kind of flavor. Foil can have, especially I'm thinking of people in chemotherapy that they have a metallic taste. So if you're not in chemo, it's probably okay. Parchment paper just seems not to impart any flavors. So that's kind of preferred by chefs as well. Not that I'm a chef, but that's what I've heard. So it's whatever you prefer, whatever you have at this point. Okay, and this is the dressing which you all have. You are using red wine vinegar in the dressing. So, where is the maple syrup? Okay, maybe it was red wine. Looks like either one will work. Okay, so if you don't have fresh dill, use a tablespoon of the dry dill, and that would work just as well. Okay. Finally, for our technique video, I know some of you are scared off by the thick skin of butternut squash. Here's an easy tip that will make your life a little easier. Basically, what you do, I won't show you the whole thing because I want to make sure we have time for questions. But basically, what you're doing here is you're rolling the squash as you cook. As you cut it, you're not trying to get through from the top to the bottom with one knife movement. So you notice how we're rolling it here. It really is much easier. Try it. And then you can either make sticks after you peel it or cube it, use it for roasting, use it for soup. It's very delicious. Very high in vitamin A, which is important for eyes and skin. So this is a great side vegetable, a nice starchy vegetable. Okay. So I'm not going to throw the whole thing, but really this is the way to cut it. Okay. Unless you want to see the whole thing, but I think you get the idea, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so which will you make? The marinated strawberries with yogurt, deconstructed sushi bowl, baked cod with fennel, or the lemon dill with asparagus? Let me know in the chat what your preferences are. I'd love to know.
Well, somebody said all of them.
All of them, good. That's what I love to hear. This is my book, which I'm so excited that someone's getting a free copy. It's called Cancer Diet for the Newly Diagnosed. It has 75 recipes, and it's a guide for during and after and beyond cancer treatment. Okay. Feel free to reach out to me. These on Instagram, Facebook. I have a private group for breast cancer thrivers. And I have a website, and this is my email. Okay. So I'm happy to take your questions. Also, Sharsheret did forward me some of the others that were sent through the website.
So Tamar, do you want me to ask you some of the questions?
Sure. Or do you want me to look or?
No, I've got it.
Okay, great.
So there was somebody who had asked about nut allergies. So you had mentioned almond flour in the beginning as an option, for Passover or for other cooking. But if you're allergic to tree nuts or nuts, like what do you recommend?
So yes, well, that means no almond butter either. Recommend for protein sources or in general, like I guess I need a little more specifics. You can try for fiber and protein, chia seeds, if they're okay with that. I can't think of anything else. It depends what you're substituting.
This
Sorry?
is for the almond flour, you know.
Oh,
if you're
almond
using-
flour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, there isn't, for Passover, I can't, there is cassava flour now, but I haven't tried it, so I don't know how that would work for recipes. You might have to stick to the, if they can eat, you know, gluten, then stick to the matzah meal, just for, you know, the 10 days.
And then somebody else on the other side had asked about peanut oil, and then palm oil, using those as alternatives for some of the different oils that you had mentioned in the beginning.
Peanut oil, I think there's some issue with for Ashkenazim. I think it's considered kitnios, I'm not sure, right? But palm oil, I would kind of have that on the bottom of the list. You can use olive oil for almost anything, even baking, or other, you know, that would kind of be on the bottom of my list because it's not a heart-friendly oil. Okay.
We also got a question about the potatoes. In the beginning, you were talking about sweet potatoes and regular potatoes. What about Japanese potatoes?
Oh, the purple ones, I love those. Those are great, and actually they lower blood pressure, so they're a great substitute. They're a little more starchy, so you have to consider that when you're cooking, but I actually make latkes out of those potatoes and they're delicious. So yeah, great idea.
And there were a few people who were requesting your eggless potato kugel recipe.
Oh, it's actually not mine. Maybe I'll send it to someone at Sharsheret, but I think it's a vegan recipe that's on, maybe it's the Hadassah website. Anyway, I'll look for it. It's very easy. It's just potatoes and onions. It works beautifully. The only trick is to let it cool completely before cutting it. Otherwise it deflates. But once it's cold, it's solid and it's a really nice option.
Great. I know there will be a lot of excitement in that. One other question about the cooking for the recipe with the cod. Could you use cherry tomatoes and seasoning instead of the tomato sauce?
Oh, that's interesting, because that reminds me of that viral recipe. You know all that viral recipe with tomatoes and feta. Yeah, I mean, you might need a little more oil. So in that viral recipe, there's a lot of oil, right? So that's my only concern, is that you'd have to use a lot more oil because it doesn't have as much moisture as the tomato sauce. So you can definitely try it. I think the flavor would be fine. But again, you'd probably have to add some oil, okay?
There was one other question I saw in here about substitutions for eggs if you're allergic for during Passover.
Yeah, Passover is an issue because I tend to use the flax, but some people, you know, don't use flax for Passover. I mean, I don't use flax. There is a way to make a chia egg, so you can look up recipes for that instead of using eggs.
And then there were a couple of questions from, you know, the registration, like you mentioned. One, constipation is always an issue, and especially during any suggestions?
Yes. Well, I'm not going to advise on medications here, but you're asking too late. You have to start way before. First of all, the number one thing is start eating yogurt today, because those have probiotics that will help you If you're not, if you can eat lactose, that will help you a lot with cutting back on the constipation. Make sure, I think some of that is not food related. We tend to be more sedentary, so make sure to move as much as you can. Try to start the day with a warm drink, not necessarily coffee, but warm water gets your digestion going. You could even like soak a prune and just drink that water, warm water. The other thing is some people are off schedule. Make sure you go to the bathroom at the same time every day, because that will help a lot in getting you back to regular. And then another thing is hot lemonade that seems to also stimulate digestion. So you can start with that. I don't know, in terms of medications, I don't know. Usually Metamucil is pretty safe for everyone. You can start taking Metamucil the first day of the holiday because you want to head it off. You don't want to wait till you have the constipation. So that would be some of my suggestions to be proactive starting now to deal with it. Also start doing more high fiber now. That will get used to it. But the matzah starch is very binding, so that's what happens. And also with the seder, you're eating late and sitting a lot, so that all is a common complaint.
For sure. Okay, well, thank you, Tamar. And of course, if you're going to be trying Metamucil or something, you'll want to talk to your doctor about
Right.
that. And then I think our final question, and hopefully it's not too long of an answer, but somebody was asking about vegetarian protein sources that are nut-free.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a challenge.
Yeah, vegetarian protein sources for Passover.
Yeah, let me think. Nut-free, yeah, because otherwise I would, let's see. Otherwise, I would even suggest, can they have pumpkin seeds? Because that's a great alternative. 1 ounce has 9 grams of protein, so see if you can add that in addition. The chia has protein. And the rest, let's see, artichokes, pretty good. 4 grams of protein. The rest would all be, not suitable for Passover. And the quinoa, obviously. So that would be kind of my suggestion to start with that. If they, I don't know what type of vegetarian, but if you eat yogurt, that's a good protein too. I haven't seen plant-based yogurts for Passover, so. Okay.
Hopefully that's coming. Well, thank you so much, Tamar. This has been really great. I know that there were a lot of things that I learned from you tonight, and I really appreciate the charts that you shared with us. I thought that they were very, very helpful. So I hope that everybody feels just a little bit more prepared to eat healthier during this Passover holiday. We, of course, recommend that you follow Tamar on her social media and that you check out her books. The links for that are in her chat. Again, I want to thank Kathy for sharing her meaningful story and her experience with us. I also want to thank our sponsors, Daiichi Sankyo, Merck, and the Cooperative Agreement DP19-1906 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention for their generous support. Please take a moment to fill out our brief evaluation survey that's linked in the chat box now. As I mentioned, we're giving away one of Tamar's books. So if you're interested, please fill out the survey to enter the giveaway. Evaluations really do make a difference in our future programming. So thank you so much for just taking a minute to fill that out. Please never forget that our social workers and genetic counselor are here for you and your loved ones. Sharsheret provides emotional support, mental health counseling, and other programs designed to help you navigate through the cancer experience. All are free, completely private, one-on-one. Our number is 866-474-2774. And you can also email us at clinicalstaff@sharsheret.org. Finally, I want to share an exciting webinar that we have planned after Pesach. Join us on Wednesday, May 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern for Reshaping the Possibilities, Exploring Breast Reconstruction Options and Aesthetic Flat Closure. Women undergoing mastectomies, whether for preventative reasons or in response to a cancer diagnosis, have more options than ever today. The link for this webinar is now in the chat. Please check out our website regularly to see what topics are coming up. You can also access the recordings and transcripts of all past webinars on our website. From all of us at Sharsheret, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We wish you a wonderful Passover and hope to see you at a webinar soon.